I'm so gone.
I don't follow behind man.
Am I wrong?
Cause I know who I am.
Huh? I'm so gone.
Off in another dimension. This world not even in my vision. Nah.
I'm so gone.
I don't follow behind man.
Am I wrong?
Cause I know who I am.
Huh? I'm so gone.
Off in another dimension. This world not even in my vision. Nah.
I'm so gone.
Shalom, shalom. Peace, peace. Welcome back to another episode of Theory of Mind Control. I'm your host, Mikayah, and today's episode is Knowledge of Elohim. First and foremost, I want to say all praise to the Most High Yah, all praise to the Mighty Yah, Creator of all things. I also want to say I want to dedicate this show and this series and everything I'm doing here to my Ima, Haya Yisrael. Haya Yisrael. Yes, that is my Ima, the one who brought me into this world, the one who raised me up and instilled love of the Most High, and instilled truth in me. So Toda to my Ima, Toda Yah for my Ima. And this is for you, Ima. Also, I recommend watching previous episodes so that you fully understand the perspective of the points and connections made in this video. I also want to say this channel is not monetized, but I am accepting donations via Cash App at YouDeliverMe or PayPal at YouDeliverMe. Your donations contribute towards my ability to keep providing this content online and improving the quality of these presentations. Episode 8, Knowledge of Elohim. I want to begin this one with the universal principle of cause and effect. It says nothing happens by chance or outside of the universal laws. Every cause, including thought, has an effect or consequence. We reap what we sow. The law of divine oneness. Everything is connected to everything else. What we think, say, and do and believe will have a corresponding effect on others and the universe around us. Genesis chapter 2 verse 24 says, "Therefore a man leaves his father and his mother and cleaves to his wife, and they become one flesh." You see, this is where we consciously apply the principles of duality and attraction to every perceived occurrence, thus revealing the principle of mentalism. Once we fully grasp the concept of negative and positive energies and how we attract and repel them with our emotions, we will then realize the power of our conscious and subconscious minds. Zephaniah chapter 3 verse 8 says, "Therefore wait for me, says Yahweh, for the day when I arise as a witness. For my decision is to gather the nations, to assemble the kingdoms, to pour out upon them my indignation, all the heat of my anger, for in the fire of my jealous wrath all the earth will be consumed." Patience is a form of self-discipline and understanding. Causality is intelligent and operates in patterns, fractals, and rhythms. When causality meets wholeness, then divine purpose is fulfilled with ease, like water flowing in a stream. When met with division, purpose is left unfulfilled, which results in vexing of the mind and heart to bring awareness to an underlying cause. Psalms chapter 133 verses 1-3 says, "Behold, how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell in unity. It is like the precious oil upon the head, running down upon the beard of Aaron, running down the collar of his robes. It is like the dew of Hermon, which falls on the mountains of Zion. For there Yahweh has commanded the favoring, life forevermore." When our hearts and minds align, we become one with our emotions, thoughts, and actions, which gives us internal wholeness. This is a powerful force and is a spiritual anointing. When we are whole in our innocence and integrity, we open the doors of wisdom to our hearts and gates of knowledge to our minds. When we are whole in our pride and insecurities, then we are still divided, rejecting wisdom out of fear and or hate. Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 4 says, Yahweh our Elohim is one. Yes, God is how we overcome our pride and our insecurities, I should say. God meaning to overcome, Elohim meaning powers, and Yahweh whose character is cause and effect, a cooperative intellectual mechanism for navigating experiential perception. Sirach chapter 21 verse 11 says, Whoever keeps this law controls his thoughts, and wisdom is the fulfillment of the honor of Yahweh. Causality is our powers. Causality is united as one. We attract what we think, say, do, and believe. When we remain true and whole, we attract truth and wholeness and change the world. Psalms chapter 37 verse 4 says, Take delight in Yahweh, and he will give you the desires of your heart. When we lie and divide, we attract the same no matter how long it takes for it to manifest. Job 20, 4-5 says, Do you not know this from old, since man was placed upon the earth, that the exalting of the wicked is short, and the joy of the powerless but for a moment? Therefore man leaves his father and his mother and cleaves to his wife, and they become one flesh. Remember, Jacob's name was changed to Israel because he prevailed after struggling with his powers and his own understanding of life. He was also confident in his heart, or in his reward, and knew that a divine path would be paved for him. See, I understand that as living souls, we inhabit vessels as manifestations of a universal intelligence for the purpose of humbly serving that intelligence with love and devotion toward it. Isaiah 43, 5-7 says, Fear not, for I am with you. I will bring your offspring from the east, and from the west I will gather you. I will say to the north, Give up, and to the south, do not withhold. Bring my sons from afar, and my daughters from the end of the earth. Everyone who was called by my name, whom I created for my esteem, who I formed and made. Our experiences are generated by the expression of this intelligence's character as previously defined and as described in Ecclesiastes chapter 12 verse 13. Honor Elohim and keep his commands, for this is the whole duty of man. Personal wholeness is imperative to self-realization and conscious evolution. In order to be fully in tune with the Creator, we must be whole within our hearts and minds. Otherwise, we will miss out on wisdom's guidance, and our life could take an alternate course based on relative potential energy transmitted during every present occurrence. Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 1 says, And if you obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, being careful to do all his commandments which I command you this day, Yahweh your Elohim will set you on high above all the nations of the earth. We exist within a live, interactive, simulated animation, full of electric and magnetic photon particles, which are byproducts of a constant ultrasonic wave frequency from beyond our solar system. Leviticus chapter 17 verse 11 says, For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you for upon the altar to make an atonement for your souls, for it is the blood that makes atonement by reason of the life. Our souls are made up of a supersonic bioplasma intelligence magnetically attracted to the liquid crystals in our blood. Our personal aura's vibratory resonance sets the tone for our blood, similarly to how study of cymatic functions. This has a major impact on our neural network and our overall consciousness. The resonant frequency of our aura subliminally communicates with not only our own consciousness, but other living organisms. Genesis chapter 4 verse 10 says, "And Yahweh said, What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground." Behold, how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell in unity. It is like the precious oil upon the head, running down upon the beard of Aaron, running down on the collar of his robes. When we sever our relationship with God, we consciously abandon overcoming psychoneurosis and induce incursion, which distorts a direct divine signal from resonating within our personal magnetic field. Ezekiel chapter 18 verse 24. When a righteous man turns away from his righteousness and commits iniquity and does the same abominable things that the wicked man does, will he live? None of the righteous deeds which he has done will be remembered, for the treachery of which he is guilty and the sin he has committed, he will perish. You see, we do this through our diet, whether it be food, music, family, friends, or entertainment. This hinders our ability to properly interpret the divine message conveyed through our experiences. Without that message coming to fruition, we are stagnant for a period of time before we pass away. Deuteronomy chapter 8 verse 3. That he might make you know that man does not live by bread alone, but man lives by everything that proceeds out of the mouth of Yahweh. Compare it to a plant that doesn't get enough sunlight to sustain its growth past a certain point. In addition, it can present a false sense of reality which leads to irrational thinking and decision making and may manifest as evil. Ezekiel chapter 18, 21 through 22. But if a wicked man turns away from all his sins which he has committed and keeps all my statutes and does what is lawful and right, he will surely live. He will not perish. None of the transgressions which he has committed will be remembered against him. For the righteousness which he has done, he will live. For my decision is to gather the nations, to assemble the kingdoms, to pour out upon them my indignation, all the heat of my anger. For in the fire of my jealous wrath, all the earth will be consumed. Personal wholeness is necessary to manage personal magnetism. We naturally attract and repel energies existent within Earth's biofield. Proverbs chapter 4 verse 23 says, "Guard your heart with all vigilance, for from it flows the sources of life." Unless we are whole, we subconsciously mismanage our biomagnetism, which can alter our experiences in ways unbeknownst to us. James 1 and 8 says, "A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways." This is dangerous because suppressed subconscious emotions tied to trauma can leave us vulnerable to pride and fear. Those vulnerabilities turn our hearts to fertile soil for seeds of deception and immorality. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 1, 3 through 5 says, "For perverse thoughts separate men from Elohim, and when his power is tested, it convicts the foolish. Because wisdom will not enter a deceitful soul, nor dwell in the body enslaved to sin. For a set apart and disciplined spirit will flee from deceit, and will rise and depart from foolish thoughts, and will be ashamed at the approach of unrighteousness." Ignorance of Yahweh's character and how it affects us makes us vessels for predatory energies and parasites that are used to provoke awareness and reflection through its evil. This operates in a rhythm of judgment, like a wave of negative phenomena. For my decision is to gather the nations, to assemble the kingdoms, to pour out upon them my indignation, all the heat of my anger. For in the fire of my jealous wrath, all the earth will be consumed. Now, for the Tower of Babel. Genesis chapter 11, 1 through 9 says, Now the whole earth had one language and few words. And as men migrated from the east, they found the plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its tops in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And Yahweh came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built. And Yahweh said, Behold, they are one people, they have all one language, and this is only the beginning of what they will do, and nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. Come, let us go down there, confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So Yahweh scattered them abroad from there over the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. Therefore its name was called Babel, because there Yahweh confused the language of all the earth, and from there Yahweh scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth. You see, there is certainly power in unity. There is certainly strength in numbers. But before we unite externally, we must unite internally. Amos 3 and 3 says, Do two walk together unless they have made an agreement? However, when we seek wholeness, it should be pure, innocent, and altruistic. We build our castles in heaven when we practice righteousness on earth. Rather, we manifest subconscious desires when we seek to fulfill the will of Yahweh. When practiced with wicked intentions, we attract the recompense that comes with every benefit we receive from our efforts. Proverbs chapter 14 verse 12 says, There is a way which seems right to man, but its end is the way to death. This is the confusion of the languages, which is losing our way along the path of causality, preserved only for the righteous. Therefore a man leaves his father and his mother and cleaves to his wife, and they become one flesh. Now, for the inspired translation of Genesis Tower of Babel, we've done Genesis 11, 1 through 5 for this episode, and it says, And my desire of all consciousness is one conclusion and united causes. And my desire is in moving forward from the past, and they find a breakthrough in consciousness, awakening transmutation, and it remains there. Yet its intent is weak, its companion is pure purity and burning anger. And my desire is towards you, the pure establishment, and a trouble happens to provoke you. And this intent gives our establishment wakefulness and prosperity, and its head is in subconscious causes, and makes us in position spread abroad, facing upon my face, all of the consciousness. And downwards is manifestation of desire, to see this wakeful self, and with the prosperity which it built, my establishment. With this interpretation, we see the purpose of wholeness is the fulfillment of Yahweh's will, which comes with a just reward being ownership of our heart's desire. Deuteronomy chapter 10 verse 12 says, And now, Israel, what does Yahweh your Elohim require of you, but to honor Yahweh your Elohim, to walk in all his ways, to love him, to serve Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and with all your soul. Sleeping. We maintain our innocence through our hardships and fight on the side of truth to reveal the message despite the messenger. We must remember that eternal knowledge of Yahweh should always be the expectancy. 1 Samuel chapter 2 and 3 says, "Talk no more so very proudly. Let not arrogance come from your mouth, for Yahweh, your Elohim, is the Elohim of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed." Having this mentality through various circumstances can trigger an epiphany of sorts where we discover the living word of Yahweh actively communicating on our behalf. Proverbs chapter 21 and 1 says, "The king's heart is a stream of water in the hand of Yahweh. He turns it wherever he wills." Self-righteousness and pride instead would be abominable, and our ignorance is valuable to our enemies. There is no honor among thieves, and when you join the congregation of the wicked, you have already eaten the forbidden fruit. When we tolerate what we know to be evil, then we accept fear and hate into our hearts to perpetuate itself in our lives. Proverbs chapter 22, verse 24 through 25 says, "Make no friendship with the man given to anger, nor go with the wrathful man, lest you learn his ways and entangle yourself in a trap." This is our powers, our ability to perceive the will of Yahweh and serve him to bring about evolution of life. Deuteronomy 8 and 18 says, "You will remember Yahweh your Elohim, for it is he who gives you the power to get wealth, that he may confirm his covenant which he swore to your fathers, as at this day." You see, wealth is not always finances, but mental clarity, emotional equilibrium, divine inspiration, family support, mutual love, good health, etc. We don't all start on the same level, but we all have Yahweh as an advantage despite our disadvantages. James chapter 4 verse 2 through 4 says, "You desire and you do not have, so you destroy. And you covet and cannot obtain, so you fight and wage war. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and you do not receive because you ask wrongly, to spend it on your passions. Unfaithful creatures, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with Elohim? Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of Elohim." To obtain only the materials of man and praise of man, then we commit our service to man and learn mortal salvation through the elusive doctrines of man. However, our service to Yahweh is rewarded with eternal salvation and life experiences, including the very true desires of our hearts. Deuteronomy 8 and 17 says, "Beware lest you say in your heart, my power and the might of my hand have gotten me this wealth." We should remember to be mindful of how the Most High's name operates and not to take it in vain, nor should we get too comfortable with favor that we become selfishly prideful and greedy. Those things lead to the lower seven abominations found in Proverbs chapter 6. 1 John chapter 2, 15 through 16 says, "Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world." You see, Yahweh our Elohim is one Elohim. Yahweh is causality, cause, effect, condition, and effect, the inner workings of all creation. We shouldn't be discouraged as if Yahweh is not with us because of our financial status. Wealth is not what brings you closer to Yahweh, but wholeness and truth is. Sirach chapter 11 verse 21 says, "Do not wonder at the works of a sinner, but trust in Yahweh and keep at your toil. For it is easy in the sight of Yahweh to enrich a poor man quickly and suddenly." Giving heed to the deeds of the wicked will not benefit us if we lust for their gain. If you watch to learn and avoid their traps, but not to be tempted by their ways. Proverbs chapter 15, verse 16. Better is a little with the honor of Yahweh than great treasure and trouble with it. Behold, how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell in unity. It is like the precious oil upon the head, running down upon the beard of Aaron, running down on the collar of his robes. Study your books and eat until you're satisfied. Before I continue, please remember what David symbolically represents, the righteous heart, as well as Jerusalem, which is the biblical version of Shambhala. Keep in mind that earth is the conscious mind and heaven is the subconscious. Observe your charts and notice where the mountains are, which represent the upper 7 virtues from Jeremiah 7, opposed to the lower 7 abominations from Proverbs 6. Understand that the promised land are in the dormant parts of our minds, and its entry is transcendental. Realize that the throne of Yahweh is where our hearts and minds become one in truth and devotion to his will. Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 21 through 28 says, Thus says Yahweh Elohim, Behold, I will take the people of Israel from the nations among which they have gone, and will gather them from all sides, and bring them to their own land. And I will make them one nation in the land, upon the mountains of Israel, and one king will be king over them all. And they will no longer be 2 nations, and no longer divided into 2 kingdoms. They will not defile themselves any more with their idols and detestable things, or with any of their transgressions. But I will save them from all the backslidings in which they have sinned, and will cleanse them, and they will be my people, and I will be their Elohim. My servant David will be king over them, and they will all have one shepherd. They will follow my ordinances and be careful to observe my statutes. They will dwell in the land where your fathers dwelt, that I gave to my servant Jacob. And their children and their children's children will dwell there forever. And David my servant will be their prince forever. And I will make a covenant of peace with them, and it will be an everlasting covenant with them. And I will favor them and multiply them, and will set my sanctuary in the midst of them forevermore. My dwelling place will be with them, and I will be their Elohim, and they will be my people. Then the nations will know that I, Yahweh, sanctify Israel, when my sanctuary is in the midst of them forevermore. Nothing happens by chance or outside of the universal laws. Every cause, including thought, has an effect or consequence. We reap what we sow. Everything is connected to everything else. What we think, say, and do, and believe will have a corresponding effect on others in the universe around us. Todayah, hallelujah. I pray that this word be well with you. Shalom.
I'm so gone.
I don't follow behind man.
Am I wrong?
Cause I know who I am.
Huh? I'm so gone.
Off in another dimension. This world not even in my vision. Nah.
I'm so gone.
I don't follow behind man.
Am I wrong?
Cause I know who I am.
Huh? I'm so gone.
Off in another dimension. This world not even